Hello and welcome to Model Kit Stuff, and welcome to part 2 of our review of Tirpitz kit. Now this is the Platinum edition that we're reviewing. In the first part we had a look at the plastic kit and the instructions for the plastic kit, which you can buy as a standalone kit. Now we're going to have a look at what else Revell put in that made this a Platinum edition. So that's another set of instructions and quite a lot of photo etch, a wooden deck and some turned parts. So let's have a look at that. Our next sprue's got some large parts on there. So let's start with the bulkheads here. So this is the forward armoured bulkhead. We've got scuttles in there which have got the eyebrows on. We've got a door that's, it's not quite straight, but it is the correct pattern with a porthole. Yeah, I'm fairly sure that's right. Correct me if you think I'm wrong on that one. Then we've got lines there which mark off the raised handrail that goes round. And then we've got a ladder in relief, which under paint will look okay, but obviously we can replace with etch. We've got the mounting point for the swing out bridges. Then we've got the louvre for the ventilator points there, and we've got some moulded in ventilators. It would have been nice if they were separate possibly, but they're moulded in well. The ventilation louvre wraps around it, which is good, so it looks okay. And we've got some additional pipe work on there which we could replace with wire if we wanted. Then we've got I'm a bit surprised to see this, to be honest. So this is I think this is B gun. I can't remember what all the German guns had names, and I could tell you what the Bismarck's ones are, but I can't tell you the Tirpitz ones. But there is an anti-aircraft position on top, and that's all moulded in one, and that surprises me. I thought that that might be a separate bit that we put on, but they have correctly got the wooden deck in there. You can see the octagonal wooden deck. We've got the ready-use ammunition lockers around the outside, which look to be in the correct position from memory. The turret top itself has got the ventilation bulges at the back for the air pressure, percussion air pressure. We've got rivets which may be oversized but stand out nicely. Yeah, that looks all right. Then we've got a platform deck here, again with that really nice deck diamond tread on it. I'm not so keen on the boxes. They look a little, they look moulded together because they are, and obviously plastic ladder, say no more. Now here's the yard arm, and actually it doesn't look as thick in plastic as it did on the instructions, so I'm not as unhappy with that as I thought I might be. Then we've got a hanger roof, so that's the double hanger there. Some specific railings which I'm sure we'll have replaced. The command tower central portion, which all looks nice, it's got ladders on. When I flip this over and look at that deck, there's a lot of ejector pin marks on there. They're all raised, so we'll sand down, but a lot of careful work needed on there. Then we've got this forward deck, and they've got the correct waffle deck on the front, which would be a wood deck area. And they have got the supports for the splinter shield there. They're a bit heavy, but they've had an attempt at it. And it's got the correct curve out. And then we've got 2 points for mounting the little observation rooms. And I've just knocked off one of the moulded plastic ladders from there, and the other one appears to already be missing, and it wasn't in the bag. Of that I'm fairly sure. Oh no, I beg your pardon. At the bottom of the bag I've got the ladder and a bit of railing. So there was 1, 2, 3, 4 sprues in this bag altogether, and that's why bits have dropped off. Then we've got this observation deck with the observation equipment already moulded in, and they've got away with it. It'd be easier to paint that area if they were separate, because you've got to paint the deck a different colour, but yeah, so they've made it a little bit harder for you, but the detail is nice. And we've got wood deck, steel deck combination, which is correct. All the steel decks are beautifully done. Looking at the roof of the armoured observation point, there's quite a bit of sink in there, and you're going to lose the raised fastener detail, which is actually quite prominent when you look at pictures of it. But when you fill that and file that, you're going to lose some of that, unfortunately. So we might have to try and reapply that with a bit of rod or something. More plastic ladders, a bit of flash. The lifting cranes which swing out from the funnel are very nicely detailed though. And they appear to have the hook in 2 different positions, which is a nice little touch. And then we've got the front of a ship's boat there, so that's quite interesting. It's nicely detailed as well. So the level of detail is really, really nice. There's quite a lot of ejector pin marks, some of which will be visible and need clearing up, but most of them is hidden away in parts that won't be seen. There's some real nice thought gone into the engineering of this. Yeah, and so far that bit of sink is the biggest issue. So Sprue K has got lots and lots of superstructure parts, and what we can see is we've got scuttles but no shutters. There should be shutters on most of those, so that's an omission. There is ladders, but there is no hose detail or anything like that, so there's a little bit of detail that we'd want to be adding to these areas. These ones that have got ventilators on, though, that they're quite nicely done, nicely detailed and nice and sharp. All of the doors seem to have the portholes in, and I'm not 100% sure that's right, and some of them look a little bit narrow, not sure. I've just lost another bit of railing. We won't be using it anyway. Then we've got the tops of the 2 individual hangers, and I don't like the boat chocks on the top. They will want replacing, I'm sure. Then we've got some deck here, but doesn't have. I don't know whether that's correct or not. Obviously, we'd need to look at our references, but there's no butt joints on those. So whether that's correct or not, I don't know. It's a short bit of deck, so it could be. And then we've got 2 halves of ship's boat, and I'm not sure if they've attempted to leave the little portholes open, or whether it's just not moulded particularly well. I think it might be the latter, but the result is there's one less that you've got to open up. Very nice actually. Sorry, we didn't comment on the funnel top. So the funnel top has got all the little pipe work around it. It's quite flashy as well, as are a lot of the parts in this kit, to be honest. They've got the pattern correct on the top, and the side walls are really, really, really thin. But the detail inside there is a bit thick, and I mean, I don't know how that's going to look under paint. I think that probably wants replacing if we can. But they've moulded that and it goes all the way the full depth of it. So how easy that would be, I don't know. Yeah. So sprue L, we've got the doors there for the hanger. So open and closed. Strange. I guess you have to cut one off or something. I'm not sure. Not quite sure how that works, but yeah, well, I don't know how that works, but clearly it's not that shape. That should be your deck level. Yeah, interesting. We've got a lump of plastic sticking out, so what that is, I am not sure. I think it might represent the crane track coming out, but doesn't look particularly convincing. Once again, we've got all the observation equipment moulded in, and once again, I'm not too keen on the fact that they've done that. And the observation equipment itself is a little basic, and we've got deck area there that's not quite moulded correctly. It's yeah, I think there's something not right with that area of this sprue. So we've got a really crisp moulded deck there, and then at this end it's still there, but it seems to have it's not as pronounced, and it's the same here. So I mean, it all looks nice. It's got butt joints. We've got the life rafts moulded in. I think more go on top, and the splinter shields here are very thick, really quite thick, so they could be better. They want replacing. The funnel itself, it's not badly done. We've got the ladders on in the correct place. The louvre ventilation looks all right, and the ventilator has the correct number of louvers and so on and so forth. As I look at that, it's all wrapped round nicely. Has the correct little flare out, sometimes missed. Yeah, I think that looks all right actually. The box there, those depressions would be hollow, so you could, with a little bit of care and a lot of time, clean them up and do that if you wanted. I wonder if there's an etch replacement. That would be nice. But what we've got is really nice, and the doors there do look really good. If we can get some etch doors on that, we could perhaps even open them up. Sprue D, quite a busy little sprue, and we've got all sorts of different things on here. So what we have, we must have another one of these because we have one anchor chain on. Now the anchor chain, when I look at it, looks all right, and painted under a wash could look quite authentic, because, and I've not got my magnifying glasses on, it is stud chain. So there wouldn't be much in the way of gaps anyway. Yeah, I quite like that. You can't really get stud chain at this scale to replace it with. You can only use open link. So I might be tempted to see how good a job we can do of making that look all right. You know, with a bit of rust on it and so on and so forth, that could look the bee's knees. We've then got a crane, and there's no real detail on the crane, whether we get some etch to put on that or even replace it, I don't know. And the catapult being solid, it's got the right pattern on it, and you could paint it dark in between and get it to where you need to be, but obviously a photo etch replacement would be a perfect solution to that. The guns, unfortunately, are solid. They don't have open muzzles, and I think when we were looking at the decals, there's actually a little black decal dot to go on the end, which is ridiculous because by the time you've put it on, the carrier film is wider than the muzzle. It just won't look right. You wouldn't be doing that. So you need to paint the end, or better still, drill the end out. The anchor is nicely done, nicely detailed, not overscale. Secondary armament guns, they're nice and clean. Fortunately, there isn't heavy seam on this, so nice and easy to clean up. We've got wooden, plastic gangway ladders there, which they're in the folded position, so that's nice to see, because often they put them in the open position for you to mount on the ship, but they don't give you a stowed away option. So I really like that. That's a really nice option, even though they're plastic. I like it. The radars are horrid. They're even worse than Tamiya ones because the backs are all over the place with ejector pins. That's disappointing. And these are the backs of the radars, and they're just a little bit heavy. In fact, they look better on the inside where you won't see them than on the outside, but there you go. There's the little davits that we saw that looked really detailed, and they are. The swing out arm is a bit heavy, and obviously the cable that's on the hook's a bit heavy, but the actual davit itself is very nicely detailed. Yeah. So that looks like the base of one of the masts. Nice and straight, good to see. We've got some railings there which we know we won't be using. Gangway ladders in the open position, ejector pins that need sanding away from them. Bases for the large anti-aircraft guns. Then we've got the aircraft. So the Arido, it's got some form of detail inside, but you're going to make much of it, I don't think. The detail on the aircraft is raised, but it is there. Not so bad. You need some photo etch propellers for the front, I think. The range finder is nicely detailed. Got lenses in all the right places, so that's good. Then we get here, we've got those would be the propeller guard booms. They look nice. Then we've got some other form of boom, part of crane hook. Then you've got the retaining chain, which again will look nice. The floats for the aircraft. Mountings for the floats. The legs for the floats are very heavy. They don't look right at all. All of the cable reel barrels are smooth, which is a bit of a shame. Yeah, but at least they're not welded to the deck and D-shaped. Then we've got some very fine guns here for light armament. More of those floats and those tubes that have the spare gun barrels in. Okay, and then our next sprue, again another busy sprue, this is C. We've got more of the main armament turrets, just like the one we've already seen really, nothing to report there. Those are the bits that go inside for the guns to swing on, so I'm not worried about the sink. The propellers, they look okay. They're a bit flat. They're not dished as you'd expect, but they will look all right with a little bit of shading. They'll look all right. Then we've got the mounts for the searchlights and the searchlight parts. They look nicely detailed. We've got cable reels, maybe hose pipe reels, which do have etched detail on. Then we've got, there's the propeller, which has got pitch on it and moulded into the spinner. So actually that's quite fine. Obviously etch would look better, but it's quite fine. You've got nice detail on the rangefinders, including the little periscope lenses, but they're pointing upwards and they should be pointing forwards, so I think that is an error. If you see these parts here, you can see there's two little lines on each one that stick up. They should be facing forwards, so I think that is an error. Fairly sure that's an error. Got ship's boats. They've got a nice shape to the hull. Smooth. I'm not sure whether they should be clinker, but then they're not if they should be. The actual top of the boats is a little heavy, but not too bad. Capstans, a little bit softly moulded, those I think. Then we've got the ship's boat halves here. They're quite nicely detailed, a bit flashy, but we've got rudders, we've got an attempt at a propeller, cabins and the forecastles are separate, and you can see where the clear plastic part's going to go. They will look really nice when done. Again, I think they're better than, I mean, look at the flash on that, tons. But they, in terms of detail, they are better than Trumpeter, and therefore better than Tamiya. Right, and I've just removed 3 sprues because they're duplicates of what we've already seen. So bear in mind when we get to the end of this, there is 3 whole sprues of plastic that you didn't see. Right, sprue B. My first observation is it's bent. Whether that's going to give me an issue, I don't know. If it is, it's going to be on this little part here, which actually is very beautifully done with the little fastener marks in each corner, the tie down marks, but that is definitely not flat. I'm sure gluing it in place will straighten it, but the detail on that is lovely. Yard arms there, they do look a little bit heavy, and they're not very spherical, they're sort of elliptical in shape, but it's not too bad. You could get away with it. That, however, I think doesn't look so good. It's a little bit simplified. That could be better. The breakwater, although the shape is nice and correct, all of these buttress supports here are heavy, and therefore it doesn't quite look right. They look like piano keys or something. We've got the ship's bell there. It's a bit triangular in shape, but it's I suppose you'll get away with it. Quite a bit of flash on some of these parts again. We've got the jack staff there. Yeah, don't think we've got a lip on. No, we haven't, but we've got plenty of flash, so we could perhaps leave some of that on and turn that into the lip. I don't know. Then we've got more railings that we're going to discard. The bridge front looks okay. Windows look in proportion. Splinter shields again a bit heavy. I'm not sure what that bit is. Fairly standard. It's got quite a bit of scratching on the surface from being shoved in the bag with the other parts, which is a bit unfortunate, but that's par for the course for Revell, so we'll just have to buff that up, but the stand itself is perfectly usable and will look nice under paint. And then this last plastic sprue, we've got the braces for inside the hull and those two sections that go into the lower hull where we're building up the shaft lines emerging. We have the last of the main armament turrets. Again, I'm not quite sure what that is. Some upper superstructure we got with a very, very triangular door. We will have to sort that. That's not right. Got some anchors that don't look too shabby. We've got like a waffle iron mast top that it looks all right actually. We can probably clean it up and thin it down in the process and just refine it a little bit. We've got secondary breakwaters, which again look a little bit heavy, but the detail on the superstructure is nice. What we've got, the doors are a bit plain and featureless. We'd need some photo etched doors, and then we've got the mast is nice at the top. The yard arms are okay, but there's a lump of something and some big ejector pin marks, so a lot of clean up and work to get that right. Yeah, that could be better as well. That's the swing out decks. Yeah, a bit of a mixed bag this last sprue. Yeah, some bits that are a little bit simplified. So what's my first impressions of Revell's Tirpitz as a plastic kit only? Wow, it's really interesting. This could be one of the nicest plastic 1/350 scale kits in my collection. I think if we think about it in terms of highlights and lowlights, highlights are the deck texturing is better than anybody's I've seen done. It's definitely better than the newer Tamiya kits, and it's better than trumpeter kits where it tends to be done over scale. So I think the deck textures are really, really nice. We've got some nicely thought through details like the stud anchor chains. We've got some really nicely thought up solutions for some of the bits that other companies would cut corners on, like the clear parts for the windscreens on the ship's boats. Really nice touch. That I think that was a lovely touch. Then there is other areas where they're on par with other manufacturers. So splinter shields that are a little bit thick. That's common to most ship manufacturers. It's the limitation of what can be done in some circumstances. I would say they're up there with others when it comes to things like that. The plastic ladders I've certainly seen worse. So again, I can't really knock them for that because everyone tends to do it except for trumpeter, which in the main will replace them with etch. When we think about the level of detail, yes, it's simplified in some places, but it's not as simplified as much as Tamiya do, and it might lack a little bit of detail in areas where trumpeter would put some in on the bulwarks, for example, and some things, some of the finer details are perhaps a little bit overscale where trumpeter and Tamiya would do a better job. So there's highs and lows. They've put railings in. If you thin them out with a knife blade, I mean, a huge job, but it could be done. You could make them look a little bit more realistic. It's better than no railings, which is how Tamiya approach it. They know that the plastic railings don't look right, so they just don't put railings in, whereas Trumpeter tend to put a generic stock of photo etch railings in and basically say, right, put the railings on right on the last page. That at least gives you something that is a little bit more realistic. And I think if Revell did that and put photo etch railings in and maybe photo etch inclined ladders, then I might be saying this is one of the nicest plastic kits I've ever reviewed or ever looked at, to be honest. It's definitely blowing out of the water Tamiya's, Bismarck and Tirpitz. And when you consider that this is about the same price in its plastic only kit form, if not maybe a bit less, this is a huge step up in terms of detail and accuracy from those two kits. So I think this is actually a really nice kit. And as I've been going through the plastic parts, I'm thinking actually I really quite fancy getting stuck into this one. So yeah, definitely worth considering. If you want to build a 1350 Tirpitz, I can't think of one that's better than this. So the Platinum edition of Revell's Tirpitz comes with 4 bags of turned brass parts. There's a bit of chain in there as well. 1 brass fret of photo etch parts and 2 nickel frets of photo etch parts. And a laser cut deck overlay and a whole load more of instructions for you to work your way through. So let's have a look at this a little bit closer and work out what is what. So if this format looks a little bit familiar, that's because it is Pontos that make these upgrade sets for the ships for Revel. And you can tell because it's that form of layout that they do. So here we've got the deck depicted with the various different things going on the deck, with the numbers shouted out and where to put the different railings. Now if you're familiar with Pontos and you've built Pontos kits before, you know that invariably there is a mistake in here somewhere, and it's like a little trick to see if you can find it. So I'm not expecting that we'll find it today, but when we come to build it, I'm sure we'll find there's some mistake somewhere, because pretty much there always is. Anyway, the first thing this first page does is shout out what all the turned brass parts are. So we have 4 bags of turned brass parts. We've got gun barrels, which obviously have nice open ends, so that means all those plastic ones we don't need to spend any time on. We have what look like smaller machine gun barrels and maybe the bases for them as well. Secondary armament gun barrels, so that's 3 bags. And then in this last bag we've got what looks like booms, yards and main and secondary mast parts, and some anchor chain which is smaller than the plastic anchor chain. So we will have to have a look. So if we have a look through the instructions here, it tells us that we've got 15 centimeter barrels, 3.7 and 3.8 barrels. So basically we've got brass barrels to replace all of the weaponry. And yeah, I was right actually, 20mm B barrel plus base. So you just break that off. We've got the foremast, mainmast, tops, yard arms, and antenna poles. So we've got basically completely replacement masts and yard arms, so that's good. It was probably the area that was the weakest in the plastic kit. We've got horn, we've got bow and stern flagstaffs. We've got a new bell, so that was nice. If you remember, we thought it was a bit triangular looking. And then we've got some parts for the cranes and the catapult mechanism. Now there's no way the catapult mechanism is going into that solid plastic part, so we must have a replacement catapult, so that's all good. So that is our brass items dealt with. Now if we look on here, it's telling us where we're putting our wood deck, and that is it there. So this is a typical Pontos wood deck, so that it's not the best deck in the world. There are now people doing wood decks better than Pontos are. They were for a while premium decks. The issue I have with Pontos decks is the laser burn and how they go about it. So what they do is that the laser's clearly going backwards and forwards, and so in some areas you're getting multiple times that the laser passes it, and every time it passes it the scoring darkens, which is why as you get close to the barbette there you get a deeper dark colour. Same here with along the edge of the breakwater, and if you see these parts here, which are those hexagonal decks that we saw moulded in for the anti-aircraft gun on the first turret, look how dark that is compared to that. So even if you put a stain on it or something like that, you can't recover that really. So yes, it's easier than painting a plastic deck, and yes, the wood deck is better scaled than the plastic deck, but it's still not to scale. And for me, I'm going to use it because I think it will contrast nicely with the painted parts, and even though it's got some of those drawbacks, I know it'll fit perfectly well. So it's really nice to have that in there. So that is our deck stuff. So the layout of the rest of the instructions is typical Pontos fare. We start with various construction steps which build on each other until you've completed the build-up of the part that you're working on, and then it shows you where it's fitted, and we'll see that throughout. So the crane itself looks really quite complex. There's a fair amount of the plastic part still being used, but we're facing it up and we're adding all sorts of guidelines and so on and so forth, so it will get busier and busier as you work through it. So you know, that's a model in itself. That really is. Then we've got the replacement catapult, so that's going to look really nice when it's done, and you can see here we've got replacement etch covers which have more detail on the plastic parts. Some of the parts will use the turn brass parts, and they show you where you need to be bending, and they show you pictures of the orientation so you can understand it, and then they show you a picture of the finished thing in place so you're clear how you need to be putting that together. The breakwater is a combination of brass and nickel parts, so that's also, I mean, that's very busy, but you've also got the front brace points as well. Loads of those. They'll be absolutely tiny. Let's see if we can have a look at those. So what we can see on the brass part, what they've done is they've attached them, so all you've got to do is fold them into place. So that's good. We're not having to glue lots of tiny parts on. You can see there we've got lots of nice inclined ladders to replace the plastic ones. We've got replacement doors there for the hangers. I'm not sure that it was actually needed, but if they're there, we're going to at least try and use them. And again, I'm not sure that replacement deck was needed, but we've got it, so it becomes an option. If the kit part's good enough to use, then I'm not going to faff around replacing things. But there is quite a lot of replacement parts in there, I can see. So as we flip this over, we're then working on the mast. So you can see there's no particular running order to these instructions. It's lots and lots of different sub-assemblies and almost organised to fit on the pages rather than the sequence you need to do them. So if we look at the masts, starting off there with your list of parts and then working through the assembly, there's a lot of folding of the box. Remember the little tilt mechanism? So we're replacing that, which was a little heavy moulded. We're replacing the waffle iron array there, which goes on the top, and then we've got the actual mast parts going in. So we're actually not using any of the plastic, I don't think. There are none of the original mast components used in the mast. And then what they've done is they've shown you all the individual parts in their different places of orientation. So that's that ladder, that's that ladder. So you're clear where things are going. There's a lot of cross-referencing needed to be done. And then we're going to build up the aft mast. So exactly the same way. And I don't think, nope, there's no plastic parts used in that either. So two full-on assemblies there, but they will look really good when done. Then we have a page that's pretty much dedicated to weaponry. So we've got replacement barrels, but we are utilising the back end of the original plastic parts. We've got some additional parts to go on to the gun turrets, the bits that weren't moulded in. We've got wood deck, as we know, and various other bits of railings. Then we've got the secondary armament, exactly the same. Replace the barrels, add additional items. They look suitably busy when done. Same with these anti-aircraft guns, the heavy anti-aircraft guns. Replace the barrels, add additional detail. There's quite a these turrets were very, very busy, and we got the rear skirts and all sorts going on to those. These are going to be really, really tiny when done. I mean, the barrels are tiny, so these are going to be really small parts here, massively magnified to show you what to do. But you've got little photo etch seats and all sorts going on there. So there's a lot being added to the plastic parts in that. And then look how complex that is. Wow. That could be fun depending on your view. If we flip over, we've then got, we're finishing off the minor weaponry with the catch bags for the spent ammunition, which is a nice touch. Then we've got a whole new replacement for that deck that had very heavy splinter shields, so that looks a lot better. We can see that fitting in there, and then the mast goes in. Then we can see this deck built up with railings on and the armament that we've done and the replacement deck. So there's a lot of photo etch going in there, new ladders and so on and so forth. It's a very busy area, that, isn't it? And this is then building up the catapult. Sorry, what am I saying? This is then building up the double hanger, and we are using the plastic parts and replacing or adding to the surface really, but we are replacing those doors with the new ones. We've got options there, obviously, open and closed. I think that's sort of how I'm reading it. And then we've got the superstructure at the rear of the ship there being built up, and some additional areas going on, a bit of additional deck that's not included in the kit, so that's nice. Funnel, all of that detail that I said was quite nicely done, they're removing right at the start. Depends on whether you want to do that or not. They're putting the handrails and things on in etch, and it will look nice and busy, but it'll also be slightly over scale. So it's up to you. I think the funnel top definitely needed doing, and we've got a complete photo etch replacement of that, so that is very nice. Some complex bending needing to be done though. You've got to get all of that bent and align it to that part, because when it goes on top it shouldn't look any different. You don't want it to be mismatched. That could be tricky. That could be tricky. Anyway, be interesting to see. Then we've got some photo etch to go around that deck. There's nothing major being done to the cranes. It's a matter of putting a little bit of photo etch on and replacing the cabling, which was a little bit heavy in plastic. So when done, it looks quite nice and busy, but it doesn't look massively different to when you started it. You've just replaced a lot of detail. So I think there's some nice stuff in there, but some of it you might want to think about whether you actually want to do that or not. But the ladders and things are easy enough to do. And then as we flip over, we've got whole new pilot's wing bridge, replacing the plastic part completely. Forward superstructure, all the external detail is pretty much being removed and re-added, and the plastic ladders, I'm glad to say, and that looks quite nice when it's done, doesn't it? Then what have we got? More ladder detail going on, railings, detailing up the two hangers either side of the funnel. And then all the new framework that goes on top. But interestingly, they're not replacing the plastic that the ship's boats goes on, which I thought they would have done. Yeah, that's a bit of a shame. Then more superstructure work. Again, it's just adding in the main. There's some bits and pieces they're taking off to replace, but nothing major. Then our last page, so we've got what, 4 pages, 4 A3 pages, deals with some additional decks and railings to put in, some additional trunking and signal equipment that's not been included. We've got some detail for the Admiral's Bridge, like the ventilated windows. The ship's horn, which I don't think was in there, or if it was, I missed it. So that's a nice and quite prominent feature. Yeah, they don't replace the front of the search lamps, so you're still working with those clear plastic parts. We've got new radar units, which I was expecting and I'm glad of, and then the range finding gets built up, and look how busy that looks when it's done. There is a lot of photo etch going into that, huge amount of photo etch. They've even got photo etch replacing the clear plastic windscreens. I'm not sure I even like that. I think I prefer the plastic ones. And then on the final page we've got some bits going on the aircraft. Photo etch spinners, quite nice, but there seems to be some extra detail around the engine cowl in there. Replacing what were heavy plastic parts on the floats, so that's good. I'm not convinced that I want to mess with the ship's boats. I think they were alright as they are. We'll have to have a look when we come to build it. Oh, I beg your pardon, they are adding some photo etch onto the searchlights, but they've done it after they've showed you assembled, which is interesting. We do have, as we look at this, we do have detail for the hatches, which I said were blank and needed some detail. We've also got detail for some of the skylights. There's one or two bits that seem to be omissions, which take me by surprise, like on the top of these, which you'd be able to prop open. But yeah, this is the final bits of deck fittings and what have you. So that all looks very nice. Chain, we'll have to see what the plastic one looks like, because the plastic one was stud, but probably will be oversized compared to that chain. So let's have a quick look at the photo etch itself. So this is the brass one, and we have already really looked at this, but the photo etch is very fine, nice and nicely done to scale. Yeah, there's some things here to properly drive you crazy should you wish. And some really important replacements like the radar arrays. I think the nickel ones will be a little bit harder to see. The idea of the nickel is that they are tougher than the brass ones, so having all of these guide ropes that are running through the cranes, it'll be more difficult to bend those out of shape than if they were brass. But we have some really nice detail, like the tops of the wing decks there that swing out, which would be wood. It's got all the waffle detail on, which the plastic parts didn't have, and the catapult is very beautifully done. And we've got some replacement doors there with nice detail on, and little gangways, lots and lots of little details, which are just going to make what is a very nice model just sing. This is the last of the photo etch, so much of the railings are on here. We've got the little kick railings reliefed into there as well. Now they would actually be separate, but it's still a nice added detail. We've got lots of little hatches and things that weren't in the original plastic parts. We've got the front covers there of the searchlight, so we'll have to sand those flat and polish them up, or maybe put a bit of acetate in. So there's all sorts of very fine pieces on here, and it's really down to, when you've got a kit that's as nice as that, putting these added details on if you want to, and treat everything here as an option, because your base kit is really quite nice anyway. So, what are my first impressions of the overall Platinum Edition kit? And as a plastic kit, it's really, really good. When you take the whole thing together, the Platinum Edition with its additional extras, if you want to build a model of the 1/350 scale Tirpitz, I can't understand why you'd buy any other model than this one. And there's two reasons why I say that. The first reason is you've got a very well presented plastic model kit which has got lots of detail in, and then you're getting a Pontos set with it, all in the same box, ready to go. So that is making your life a lot easier. You can buy into the Pontos set as much or as little as you like. The second thing is the price. Now, if you bought the Tirpitz as a plastic kit, say from Tamiya, you're going to pay in this country around about 60, somewhere between 50 and 65 pounds for it. Then you're going to buy some photo etch for it, and if you were buying the Pontos set, that's going to cost you about 150. So you're looking at about 210, maybe 220 pounds with shipping to get a model put together of the Tirpitz, and it'd still be inaccurate because the length of the hull on the Tamiya one is wrong. Or you could buy this Platinum Edition Revel kit, and that'll cost you around about 115, 120 pounds now, I think. Might be going up a little bit at the moment, and I don't know whether it's still in production. When it came out, I think it cost me around about 110 pounds brand new. I got it when it was released. So for me, that is great value, because I couldn't buy the Pontos set for that money, and I always buy my Pontos sets directly from Pontos. So you're getting the plastic kit free. So for me, this is a real bargain. It's a really nice kit. Obviously, I've not looked at my references, so I couldn't tell you how accurate it is, but we know that Pontos will have added detail to make it more accurate. You know what? I think it's a really nice kit, and quite probably one of the nicest ship kits in my collection. I hope that was helpful. If you're interested in buying into a 1350 Tirpitz, I think this is the way to go. Don't know what you might think. Anyway, that's it for this video. We will see you very soon.